Hey Sam.
Hi Joe, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad.
Okay, you're okay here?
Yep, I'm just going to pause the record.
Sister. Thank you. Thanks for recording it. Thank you. So Isla obviously is also 8. Isla has typical motor development, but for Hugh, he was always delayed in his motor development. He laid across the top of my womb. So if you imagine trying to fit 2 babies in a 5'5" person, it was quite a squish. So Hugh didn't have much room. He sort of laid laterally across the top underneath my ribs. So because he was in a side-lying position, he never got the opportunity to be upside down. What that did for his vestibular system, which is a system in his inner ear, is it really affected his balance. He had to move his head. He hated going on a swing. So this swing photo was a huge moment for us when he finally went on a swing. But even if you look at his hands and his legs, he's still not comfortable on that swing. He's gripping to that swing for dear life. So Hugh really inspired me to take my exercise physiology skills from the dementia ward into early childhood, and I've been in early childhood ever since. So Play, Move, Improve was just a business that I made to get the message about motor development out there and to share my skills with everyone around me. So I'm just going to stop there for a second. I'll come back to screen and I'll say hi. I can see you all now. So thank you all for coming and for having your screens on. I am usually a face-to-face workshop person. If you came to the face-to-face workshop without COVID, you'd be up and moving and moving around. So it is lovely to see faces. I promise I won't judge. I just like to have that human contact. So I'm going to do the best I can to share what I love in this webinar format. And what we're going to start to do is just get ourselves awake for 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. You don't have to move from your couch, but I do hope you all have a pen or some sort of writing apparatus. I can see, yeah, clicking your pens. Thanks, Christy. So all we're going to do is just start off by moving our body. I want to get the brain going. So we're just going to wrap our texter or our pen just around our waist. Super simple. Really simple. Come on, you can do it. It's Saturday afternoon. We love Saturdays. Awesome. I'm then going to get you to roll the pencil just around one arm. Look at that. And by the end of the session, you know exactly what I'm doing. And then we're going to go around the other arm. So swap hands to that non-dominant hand and get it moving. Fantastic. I'm just going to pass it from hand to hand. Oh, I dropped mine. Look at that. From hand to hand. And then we're just going to go around our neck. You got it. Look at you guys go. Saturday afternoon. Aren't we loving it? And around the other way. That's it. And take a breath. You're past the first bit. I'm going to take you back to my slides and explain exactly why I did that crazy nonsense. So bear with me as I do that. Here we go. So what we look at, and hopefully you can see it, otherwise you can move the little video people around if you can't see what's happening. So what we want to look at here is why I got you to move and why I got you to get oxygen to your brain. So our brain is fueled by oxygen. It's like me putting petrol in my car. The brain needs oxygen and energy that comes from glucose in our food. It needs it to function. The main areas you can see in this imaging scan is the temporal lobes and the prefrontal cortex. Now, if anyone listened to the amazing Karen this morning about anxiety and the amygdala, she was talking about the prefrontal cortex. That's your thinking brain. So when we get movement and oxygen flux through to our brain, these are the areas that make you pay attention, focus. They also impact your emotion and they impact your behavior. What we're seeing a lot of lately is screen time, kids on screens. Now, to survive this morning's session, my kids were on a screen because that's how we get, you know, some alone time sometimes. Not saying screens are bad, but I am saying that it is impacting children's movement. And it's what it's doing is it's not allowing them to get that movement, particularly head and eye movement that they really need for their learning and development. So screen time, we'll chat a little bit about and what we can do to help, but it's trying to get the awareness out there to children as well that our brain is fueled by oxygen and how we get oxygen to our brain is moving. And as you saw, it's not complicated movement. The body doesn't care how it's moved. It just needs to move. Just moving a pen around your neck and around your tummy is movement. You all might feel a little bit warmer, you all might feel a little bit puffed, and that was 30 seconds of movement. So if we can add that into our kids as often as we can, then they're going to get that flux of oxygen and energy to their brain. My idea is hopefully when we teach kids about it, they'll go home and they'll spread that message to their siblings, to their parents, and that's how we raise awareness. So when we talk about screens or when we deal with screens, it's not screens are bad. It's just we have to find that really healthy balance. So just quickly what we're going to chat about in the next hour, it will go quick, but I'll try and get as much into this as I possibly can, is we look at the school readiness milestones. So school readiness for me as an exercise physiologist really has nothing to do with literacy and numeracy. I'm sure as educators and teachers, you would be looking at that. But what I look at is I need to get the brain and the body ready to be able to learn. And these are the skills that we're going to go through today. So please feel free to stop me at any point. Sam is here to help me. So use the chat box. Thanks, Sam. Use the chat box as much as you can and type away, and we'll try and get those questions answered. If I can't answer the question with enough time today, please email me and I can answer it by that as well. More than happy to help. So the first one here is visual tracking. So all we're going to do is we get our pen out and we just make sure that our children that we work with can visual track. This starts from 18 months and above. You can even see, this is my little Phoebe. She's my youngest, she's 4. Little Phoebe there as a baby, we were even encouraging visual tracking from 6 months of age, because what we want to do is get the eyes moving from side to side. So all I tend to do is make sure that when I give a child a toy and my assessment for that day is I just make sure they can track my pen or my toy from side to side. But most importantly, I also want them to be able to track it up and down. So if you're having children who are struggling with that, and you may have found that they're in the Kindy years and we've just noticed that they're struggling with that, marble runs are fantastic, mazes are great, balloon tapping is awesome because you're doing it in a play-based approach. Me doing this to a kid is pretty boring, but me tapping a balloon to them and making them have to track it with their eyes can be great. What I do on the balloon, if you have children really struggling with moving their eyes, is you can put stickers on the balloon that have animals or letters, and then they have to look at the balloon more intensely to see what is on the balloon. So we just want to try and make sure that their eyes are visually tracking. With screen time, if I look at my good old phone for long periods of time, I'm not needing to move my eyes. You'd see so many children, 18 months, 2 years of age, in a stroller at the supermarket on this. They're not getting the visual feel that they would if they were walking with mum or dad, or if they were scanning the environment with their eyes. I don't like to solely blame a smart device, but it is really impacting, from what I see, children's eye and head and hand movement. So that's visual tracking. And again, please feel like you can ask questions. It's all good. Most of you now know the importance of core strength. Core strength starts from tummy time. SIDS have done an incredible job with preventing deaths from having children laying on their backs in their cots, from having babies laying on their backs in their cots. But unfortunately, we missed a message here of the importance of then playing on their tummies. When most of us were babies, we laid on our tummy. So we got that tummy time experience in our cots. So we didn't really need the extra tummy time play as we were up and ready to play. But babies are spending so much time on their backs, in their cots, that we have to give them that opportunity to build up their core strength and their neck strength in tummy time. Children that are typically floppy, you'll see them at circle time, floppy. You'll see them sitting in W sitting position. It's not every child I ask, but some children or parents I ask is, did your child get enough tummy time? And there is a small link between they hated tummy time and you see this child sitting really poorly at mat time. It's not a bad thing. We can fix it, which is awesome. We can build up that core strength, which is exciting. And how we do that is through preschool setups where you can see Hugh doing a jigsaw puzzle while laying his tummy on a Duradisc or balance disc, as you could call this. Hugh had his own challenges. So with his developmental delay, he still needs to be in tummy time. I still, at the age of 8, give him iPad time in tummy time, because he's always going to need that extra. It just, because of his brain development, it didn't come naturally for him. So he needs more practice than my daughter Isla. But these play setups where you can get them to lay on their tummy and play can help. The reason why I did jigsaw puzzles is that was Hugh's favorite activity. So he was reluctant to be in his tummy, of course. I'm reluctant to go to the gym. He didn't want to have to do hard work, so I would make it as enjoyable for him as possible. With Phoebe, the little one here, when we were rolling a ball back and forth, again, I had to make it interesting. Not many children are going to go into tummy time when it's hard work and be happy to lay there independently. We may need to set up those situations, but even a minute a day is going to be beneficial for their core strength. And if we can get a minute a day, whether it be singing a song all together in tummy time, or whether it be setting up small groups where you have an assistant who has them in tummy time, you're really doing an amazing thing for their core strength and their neck strength, of course. I'm just going to point out here, sorry, I haven't used, I don't have my little pen. Oh, do I? Hang on, sorry, one sec. I haven't included reaching and grasping in this topic, only because that would take me another hour and a half to explain fine motor. But if you have any questions, again, email me and we can see what we can do. So I'll go straight into rolling for you. And I'll try and erase that so I'm not distracting you. Sorry about that. So what happened with rolling and why I started to realize rolling was so important was Hugh would only roll one side. Even when he was born, he would only roll to one side. He really struggled rolling both sides. And because of Hugh's vestibular inner ear issues, he really didn't like rolling at all. When children have vestibular issues or balance difficulties, they'll want to keep their head still. They won't want to move their head because it gives them this dizzy feeling. It makes them feel nauseous. If any of you had vertigo, that's how Hugh felt when he moved his head too quick. So rolling puts him through a 360-degree circle, which is really overwhelming for his senses. So he liked to stay still. So we had to try and build that up to the point where he would roll now. Still, he wants an incentive to roll. It's for him to have stronger muscles, or it's for him to for me to kick a footy with him. He's just not going to always choose to roll. But why we want to roll is it stimulates that vestibular system. It teaches our spatial awareness because we feel what upside down feels like, and it's really fantastic for core strength. If you have any little ones who don't know how to roll, and I've noticed it a lot in the last few years, we're rushing our children to develop, so we may not know how to roll. I just sit behind the child. So you'll see Phoebe on the left here. I'm sitting behind her with a mirror. I'm taking it from one shoulder around the back of her head to her other shoulder, and it will make them turn because they'll be looking at the mirror, and as they look at the mirror, they'll roll their body. So if you need to get them doing that, and then once they roll, most children find it pretty fun. It's just that initial phase. It's an unusual feeling of movement if they haven't been exposed to it yet.
So Robyn, just a quick question.
Yep.
My daughter, Indiana, she only ever rolled once. So she's now 11 months and she crawls, but when she doesn't try and roll over, she would much rather try and like pull herself up into a seated position from lying on her back rather than rolling onto her belly and then hopping up. Is that?
Yeah, it's very common.
It is? Okay.
Very common. So you have different personalities in
that.
No, it's not your fault. No one's fault.
He just rolled for days. He just rolled like a sausage rolling off a pan.
We all have our different personalities. So I look at Hugh. Hugh's still very placid. If I'm going to do the dishes for him, he'll let me. If Isla's going to go and get his ball for him, he'll ask her, she'll get it, he'll just sit there. He's got that placid type personality, where Isla's a go-getter. Isla is, I'm going to sit up because I want to have a conversation. I want to be involved in play. Children often want to sit because they want to be conversing with you and mimicking you. So they'll want to get into that position. You'll have kids who'll scroll through all the rolling, crawling straight into running because they want to get up to their sibling. Mostly youngest siblings want to beat their milestones to get to their older siblings. So they can sometimes skip these phases out of pure personality and just wanting to get stuff achieved, which may be the situation. All I encourage is we slow it down.
Yeah.
The child might naturally be driven to speed it up, but it's our role to try and slow it down. If there's one thing that we get out of this whole workshop, it's that development is a pattern. It's not a race. It's not I must sit by this time, walk by this time, write my name by this time. It's a pattern. And if we miss parts of the pattern, then we can have issues with our development, or if we rush through the pattern, then we might have issues as well. So we can sometimes feel it's hard for us because we obviously want what's best, but we have to slow it down a little bit. So what I would suggest, if we've gone straight from not rolling much straight into sitting, is we try and make tummy time fun. And how we make tummy time fun was going back to the games where we lay on our tummy. Also setting up activities under a small kids table is fantastic because they can't sit under there. They can't fit. So setting up fun activities where I put stickers underneath the bottom of tables. So if you decorate under your tables, they crawl in there, they'll roll to see what's underneath the table. It's just giving them that opportunity to try a different way of moving around. But it's very common for children to rush because they're so excited to get around.
Cool, thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah, and I promise you, you're not the only one. It's very common. But if we can try and get rolling both ways, and it's using simple wedge like this. Most kindergartens or schools have this soft wedge. Modern Teaching have them. That's where I got this one from. So it's just a soft wedge. We roll down it. It's super fun. So if you can try that. But the other strategy for younger kids is if you try the mirror activity, or you might get their favorite toy. You just take their toy from one side around the back of their head to the other, and you'll see them start to roll over. And we just celebrate them when they roll. We make it all exciting, and it's just to give them that opportunity to get the whole body developed. We'll go to the next one for you. Crawling, crawling, crawling. I'm sure you all know about crawling. If you raise your hand, you know the importance of crawling. I'm sure everyone knows. Yeah, you all know the importance of crawling. Awesome, I'm getting head nods. That's good. Crawling is about cross patterning, crossing the midline. You've all heard those principles. It's also core strength. So to get the girls into this position, and where Hugh really struggles and still needs help sometimes, is he had trouble with the core strength to take his body away from the ground against the force of gravity. Gravity is sort of squashing all of us down into our chair. That's what gravity does. It's really good at it. We have to use our strength to hold us up against gravity. And that's really why crawling is fantastic. Crawling over cushions is even better because they have to bring their knee up and their hip up to get up over cushions. That's why I love these foam mats. I also added an auditory, a sound sensory part by putting bubble wrap on it. But getting children not to just crawl on flat, if they can crawl on different textures and different surfaces, they'll build up that core strength even more. Also, again, you'll see lots of crawling under tables. Try to use under table resources as a new play space. We tend to forget about that incredible play space that's under a table. It has so much power to help children, encourage them to crawl under the table, especially if you have a reluctant crawler. We have quite a few these days. Again, I feel like sometimes we rush through to walking. I know that when I had the twins and Hugh was still crawling at 22 months, I'd have friends go, oh, he's nearly 2, he's not crawling. Like, why isn't he crawling? What's wrong with him? It was all this, sometimes we put too much pressure on each other that they have to walk or have to do these things by a certain time, where really he was just going through his pattern. He's just getting through the pattern. Because if you look at him now as an 8-year-old, he can do all of the playgrounds, he can kick a footy, he can play basketball with his friends. It's the pattern. If I had have rushed him to walking and missed crawling, then we can see some of those crossing the midline challenges that we see in our kids. So please crawl, 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 crawl. I've just added crossing the midline in for you just in case you're not too sure of crossing the midline. So here you'll see Hugh crossing the midline, and you can see that his torso, so where his body is following his hand. So he's technically not crossing the midline at 4. We'd love for all children to be able to cross the midline at 4. So I'm just going to show you my little whiteboard here. So all we want to do is draw 2 lines on a whiteboard or a piece of paper or a piece of concrete, doesn't matter. And we want the child to stand in the middle of your 2 lines that you've drawn. And we want them to go from one side of the paper or the whiteboard all the way over to the other in a nice fluid circle. What you will see and what we're looking for is how much they move their torso, because that can show that we might not have crossed the midline and developed those skills just yet. You also want to look for any child that gets to the middle and swaps hands. You might see them at the painting station. They'll do the same. They'll get to the middle and swap hands. They're not quite crossing the midline yet. Or they'll get to the middle and they'll dip down. So there'll be a gap here. It won't be symmetrical. And it's just showing that they haven't quite developed that 2-sided coordination just yet. So if you can try that skill, if you've got preschoolers, I might ask Sam just for generally what age group people are working with, just so I can make sure I'm getting that covered. So if you don't mind just quickly typing what age group you work with mostly, I'll make sure I cover all bases. That would be awesome. And then another thing that we can do with crossing the midline is just checking a few activities, which I'll quickly get you to do. It's super simple. We're going to do one that's sitting down because I don't want you to see me up and down. But if you imagine I'm standing up, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my opposite hand to opposite knee. I don't know if you can see my knee there. And then opposite hand to opposite knee. So even if you want to try that, it's opposite hand to opposite knee, and then opposite hand to opposite knee. Kids who can't cross the midline yet, this will be what they do, same side. So you'll see kids in morning circle time, they'll try and do it and they'll go same side, or they might get stuck in this crouch position and they'll only be able to cross over their hands, their legs won't move. So that's another sign that we can't quite cross the midline yet, which is fine. It just means we have to add that movement into your routine. For anyone who wants, I have a free a routine that has pictures. If you want, please just email me. I can easily send you the routine and it has pictures of those crossing the midline activities. That's not a problem at all.
Yes, please. Most of the ones, Robyn, are from 3 to 5 years in the Kindy sector or prep.
Awesome. Oh, perfect. So if 3, I wouldn't be too worried about. So if the children are 3, that's fine. But in that 4.5 to definitely 5, we want to make sure that we can cross the midline. So Hugh is at the end of his kinder year here, and that would have been a red flag for me. It was already a red flag for me, but if I was a teacher, that would start to make me want to add more crossing the midline into Hugh's day, if we could, by doing lots of crawling, by doing that crossing the midline morning exercise. I just want to show you why it's a problem. So why we want to get it on top of it is, in order for me to write my name, I have to have crossed the midline, because this is my midline and this is how big my name is. What you'll find with children who can't cross the midline yet will write really small and in the middle. They'll be stuck in their midline. So then we have our preppies come in and we want them to draw me a picture, and I want them to draw me a picture of a house. Then I want them to draw me a picture of a sun, and everything will be in the middle. It'll all be stuck in the middle. If I asked Hugh at that stage of his development to draw me a sun, he would have moved his whole body to draw me a sun. And if you think about how exhausting that is, that every time you want to draw something or write something, you have to move your torso, that's exhausting. So you've got really grumpy, tired kids by the end of the day, because just to cross the midline, they're moving their whole body. So if you can add crossing the midline activities into your day, if you can encourage really big writing, so even these little mini whiteboards that I know lots of you have, try and get them to draw as big as they can on it, because it's encouraging them to cross their midline as much as you can. Are there any questions about crossing the midline? Because I know it's usually quite a popular one.
In the comments from Debbie, she says it sounds a lot like brain gym from lots of years ago. Yeah. So very similar to brain gym. So because brain gym has come from our area. So to explain probably where I'm coming from too, an exercise physiologist is very similar to an occupational therapist, and brain gym is around similar people to my profession who created brain gym. So brain gym is fantastic. It does a lot of, opposite ear, touch your nose, those crossing patterns. So I love brain gym, and it's using similar neuro rehab principles to what we learn in our craft. So please, if you have access to that, it's fantastic. There's also other resources out there. I have a YouTube channel, even if you just want to click play, because what I love about brain gym is it's easily accessible. So I have created some YouTube videos just to click play, let the children practice those skills. It's so important. It's more important now than ever before because of this little friend here. Because when we've got our iPad and our phones in the center of our body, we're not crossing the midline. We're not doing those skills that we really need to be doing. We're living in our center. When we look at being able to get dressed, so being able to put my jumper on, I have to cross the midline just to take my sleeve off. We have kids who can't get dressed because they can't cross the midline. We have kids who can't tie their shoelaces because we struggle to cross the midline.
So these resources, whether it's Brain Gym or whichever you use, it's really important. Absolutely. So great comment. Thank you so much. I'll go on to sitting. Sitting is always a popular topic because W sitting is what we talk about the most. So I might come back to being full screen so you can see my W sitting example. Again, I'll bring out my little trusty whiteboard. So when we look at W sitting and why children W sit, is if you imagine I'm sitting, these are my knees, down here are my knees, this is my bottom, and these are my thighs. So you imagine I'm sort of sitting towards you, knees, thighs, bottom, all of those areas are holding me up against gravity. So when I'm sitting in W sitting position, my thighs are holding me up, the tops of my feet are holding me up. Children with poor core strength typically sit in W sitting because their legs are doing the work of what their core should be doing. When we're sitting in our chairs right now, our core is doing what it should, and we're only touching our bottom on the ground. It should just be the bottom that's on the ground. When we're sitting cross-legged, you'll imagine they're quite the opposite. And this is why the children struggle to sitting cross-legged so much, because when we sit in a cross, which is actually a V, if you imagine it, our bottom is on the ground and a tiny bit of the outside of our ankle is on the ground. So looking at the difference in surface area, I have nowhere near as much of my legs holding me up in cross-legged sitting versus how much of my legs are holding me up in W sitting. And that's where our vicious cycle begins. So when we're sitting in W sitting, my core's having a holiday, my legs are doing the work, so then my core gets weaker, so then I sit in W sitting more. And that's that cycle that continues and continues. How we get children out of W sitting, you got to break the habit. So what we do is we do a lot of crawling, a lot of tummy time, and a lot of trying to sit in cross-legged, but being mindful that that's really hard for them. It's a workout just to have them sitting in cross-legged. So we've got to build up that core strength in other ways. I'll take you back to sitting. 2 seconds. Thank you so much for your patience with me flipping back and forth. A challenge that I think we have and why children quickly flip into W sitting is we do sit our children up quite quickly. So Hugh was a social little being. He loved to be in sitting. So you can see the left-hand photo of Hugh. He's sitting, but he's not ready to sit. But he was happiest when he was sitting. If I had him in tummy time, he cried. If I had him laying on his back, he cried. If I cuddled him, he really didn't like it because he wanted to have a conversation with me. He's still that sort of kid. He wants to be right in the moment, talking to everyone, engaged in that language type play, where Isla was the opposite. Isla wanted to go and find a toy, go and break open a cardboard box. She wanted to get out of there. She wanted to sit. But I had to find that healthy balance, because if I just sat him all the time, the challenge would be he wouldn't have got the core strength that he needed. He wouldn't have got the tummy time that he really needed. And he probably wouldn't have crawled because he would have been so happy just to sit. So what we can sometimes be mindful of is some children will love to sit. He still loves to sit and have a chat, but it's finding that really healthy balance. It's also telling our friends who are rushing, feeling bad because their child's not crawling or walking yet, that it's okay. It's not a race, it's a pattern. What I noticed in Instagram's great, but Instagram is everyone's posting when their baby sits and is all cute by 6 months, and then everyone posts when their kid walks before their first birthday. And people celebrate it because it's exciting. But if we look at development, we've got so many things to achieve before we worry about what age they sat and what age they walked. So it's trying to remind our colleagues and our community at large is that we don't want to rush this stuff. It's not necessary. What would have happened if I didn't get Hugh to go through his development as he needed to would be he would sit like this at school. So you see Hugh now in this photo, he's 5 and he's leaning back on his hands because he doesn't have the core strength to sit up by himself. You might see kids leaning forward on their lap because they don't have the strength to keep themselves up against gravity. We need to develop that core strength so that they can sit up and be able to be a part of the class without being fidgety or without bumping into other people. So sitting is a really important milestone, but we've got to develop all those other milestones first. Otherwise we have floppy sitters. I'm going to bump past walking. You guys know about walking. I think I've preached enough to you guys about walking. I'm going to go straight into spatial awareness because I'm really mindful of your time. So spatial awareness, I'm going to see if you can do a little challenge for me. And it's super simple. I'm just going to get you to find your nose. See how we go. Actually, I'll come into full screen so you can see what I do. So we're just going to find our nose, super simple. And then with the opposite hand, I'm going to find my opposite ear. So a little bit like brain gym. Excellent. And then I'm going to find my knee. And I'm going to find my elbow. And then I'm going to find my belly button. You passed. Good job. And I can see a little man there. Hello. And that, don't be sorry. It's awesome. I love it. I love this. It's great. So spatial awareness, what I just did was I did body awareness. Where are the body parts? Where is my body? But then there's a second component of spatial awareness. Space. Where is my nose compared to this block? That's spatial awareness. We have to learn our body first. Hi. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by kids. We have to learn our body first before we can learn space. If I don't know where my body parts are, then I'll bump into my friend because I don't know the difference between my body and the location of my friend's body. So it's really important that we go back to the basics, especially around that 3-year-old level, to make sure that every 3-year-old, or even in the prep room, making sure every child can find their body parts, because you'll be surprised there'll be some that can't. There'll be some that have just become rushed through their development, whether it's personality or environment, and they could have possibly got to prep and not been able to find their body parts. To give you an idea, I'm in Melbourne, and in our data, we have 25% of children aren't physically developmentally ready for school, 25%. And one of the tests is, can they find their nose? And one of the tests that I see when I ask, can you find your nose, is they'll often miss. We take it for granted, yeah? We just find our nose without a problem. We've got little preppies who miss. So if I miss where my own nose is, the chances of me being able to coordinate a toy or be able to write my name is really challenging because I'm still trying to learn where my nose is. So just making sure that they have body awareness first. And a way that we can find spatial awareness is super simple. You just ask them to touch your nose, then you ask them to touch your finger. So if you imagine we touch our nose and then we each touch our finger in the middle, you'll start to see whether they can know the difference between where their body is and where you are. And you'll see generally the kids who struggle with that. So my Hugh struggled with that, and he was the clumsy kid. He was the kid that often tripped over his own feet because that part of development has to come so we can understand how far away I am from the desk or how far away I am from the step. And it gives those really important skills of movement, and we need it from the ages of 2 and up. But we're finding 25% of preppies age 5 can't do that. So if you can try and add that in, that would be awesome. I know there's some questions here, so do you want me to quickly catch up? Here we go. It's always a good question. I'm just going to read it, Sam. That's all right. Is it okay to offer a chair? Right. It's a good question. Awesome question. Thank you, Demeter. To a point, yes. So what I would recommend is I would offer the chair for times when they need to focus. Say, for example, you have mat time and they need to focus on or be engaged in the mat time. But then I would take the chair away and I would make sure they do something that's going to strengthen their core strength. For example, it might be, I'm going to give you the chair, but then we're going to do an obstacle course. And that obstacle course is going to require that you crawl over cushions. We're going to go over the A-frame. We're going to do something that requires core strength. Because the challenge that we can get when we offer children with poor core strength a chair too soon is this is how they sit in it. And it's that vicious cycle again. If I slouch in my chair, my core strength gets weaker. I rely on my chair more often. So, but again, if we don't give them something to get through their day, it's a very exhausting day. If they have to try and keep their core going the whole day, that's like us going to the gym for 3 hours. Exhausting. So it's that really healthy balance. But if we're going to put in a strategy like that, whether it's a stool or a chair, then we need to make sure we've done something else in that day. One super simple thing is setting up hopscotch on the way to the outdoor play area, or setting up hopscotch on the way to go get your snack. We build up core strength through crawling, jumping, hopping, climbing, and it can just be part of a transition. So we just go through our transition, everyone gets a turn, and you can try and work it in that way. There's also, even if you go on my website, playmoveimprove.com.au, I'll write it here. You can just search core strength and you can find some ideas on there as well. I'll just pop that there for you. And no worries, Demeter, not a problem. It's a great question. And yes, we have been talking about this a lot today. I've been in some really fantastic webinars, like I'm sure you have as well, talking about that the curriculum is setting this race mentality up, I think. Phoebe's now in kinder. I'm actually repeating her kinder year because I just don't think she's ready. And I'm getting looks like, why are you holding her back? Like, why are you holding her back? And it's not about holding anyone back. There's a pattern to our development. I believe there's a pattern to when we're ready for school. And if we rush kids, then we're really making them not enjoy the process. If I was to rush Hugh through his development instead of making every stage fun, he wouldn't be enjoying his movement. I think he would have avoided movement altogether if I made it not enjoyable for him. And prep, I feel, is the same. We're making it a race, making it a competition. I've got kinder mums saying, oh, my kid can write his name and my kid can read. And like, it doesn't matter. We've all got a pattern that we need to follow. And it is this race. So look, I'm annoying on social media all the time, trying to calm the curriculum down, trying to go back to the basics of how does the brain learn? The brain has to have the foundation right properly first. If I don't have spatial awareness, I can't write my name. I have a big R in my name, and then I have a Y that goes underneath a line. How am I going to know that the Y goes underneath the line if I don't even know how to hold my pencil yet? It's a process. But I think it is having these conversations with all the people that we work with. There's no rush. We don't need to rush through school or through all of this. But I absolutely, it's treated like a race, and we just need to chill it out a little bit.
And as a prep teacher, if you don't mind me coming in as well.
Oh, please.
As a prep teacher, I see quite a lot of that. There's a lot of things that the children haven't been exposed to, that haven't had the opportunities to be able to navigate through or learn through. So when they are coming into prep, you are spending a lot of time providing them with that catch up of that pattern that you're talking about to get them to a stage that they are ready developmentally for curriculum to happen. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And the challenge for you as teachers is you don't set the curriculum. You're given it. You're given the pressure, and you've got the pressure from the families. We've got pressure from families. You know, my parent must know how to write their name. My child must know how to write their name. My child must be able to read level 5 by the end of prep. But then they're not understanding there's curriculum pressure, there's parent pressure, and the teacher's here going, but they can't even find their shoes. Or where's their drink bottle? Yeah.
And I just noticed that Sandra Matthews has said that that's why prep should be play. You're right, there should be play, but there is so much learning that can happen through play if it's implemented effectively. And obviously I'm just one prep teacher, but there's a lot that prep teachers do have hovering up here that they have to confine to, which isn't always looking for the best interest of the individual child.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at play, you know, I've got I can't show you my desk, but my desk is a mess. There's stuff everywhere. But when you look at play involves objects. And when I have objects, I learn about space. When I clap these together, I feel it. I feel how far away they are because it makes a noise or it vibrates through my hand. I learn about positioning because if I put the dice on top, I put the dice under, I put the dice next to. But if we get children who've never played with toys before, they've just mostly interacted with this, we take them into a classroom and we go, okay, well now your name is Robyn, you've got to put an O next to the R, but I don't understand what next to even means, then we've got a problem. And then what we've sometimes got, and the children that I support, is then this stuff gets thrown at you because you have a really unhappy, really frustrated 5-year-old or 4-year-old in front of you. So it's trying to get everyone involved, and as much as you can, spread the word. Play is a child's learning. It's all of our learning. I'm playing with you right now to teach you what my craft is. If I just sat at the front and said, this is how the brain works and here's all the different parts, how boring. We have to really give that service to our children as well. But the curriculum, I believe, is the problem. So we're trying to just develop it in whatever way we possibly can. And if touching our nose has to be documented in order for the curriculum to realize how much that is linked to literacy, then we collect that data.
We do have somebody that has asked, what do you think about the rocking seats for children who can't sit still?
Yes, excellent. Good question. So there's two parts to when a child can't sit still. Either a core strength challenge, well, three really. Core strength, is their core strength not strong enough that they can't keep themselves upright? So they have to keep using other muscles to keep themselves upright. Are they seeking proprioception? Now, sensory would be a whole other webinar, but there's a sensation called proprioception, and that's the feeling of pressure. So when I rock, my joints get pressure and it keeps me focused. Or is it that the content of the curriculum or the content of the lesson is just going over their head and you've got someone who's completely distracted? Because that's the three things we have to look at. So when we look at providing a child with a rocking seat or any other type of strategy, whether it's a fidget toy, whichever we're trying to offer, we've got to make sure that what we provide matches the problem. I could give this fidget tool to a child because I think that they're fidgeting, but this isn't going to help their core strength. So it's just making sure that it matches exactly what they need. So the way we would know whether the rocking seat is appropriate or not is if they were able to completely be able to crawl, climb, hop, jump, their core strength looked quite strong, they weren't floppy, then it wouldn't be a core strength issue to why they needed the rocking seat. If they struggled to sit still because they were constantly moving their body, they were constantly pushing other kids, or they were constantly throwing furniture or tipping up tubs, then we'd be looking at proprioception. There's what we call sensory seeking, then the rocking seat would be appropriate. Because what the rocking seat is giving them is that sensory information that I'm getting by moving my arms around. The third one is if the content is too high or too low, then we'd have to try and adapt that because the rocking seat isn't going to fix that. Does that make sense? Yeah, great question. It's awesome. I'm just going to double check I haven't missed anything. Sorry, Sam. Yes, and again, it's that big rush of we've got to get that healthy balance between we want to push our kids. You know, having Hugh, I wanted to push him because I knew he was capable, but I didn't want to rush him that I squashed his self-esteem. For a little boy who couldn't go on the slide and play on the playground with his friends, I didn't want to do that in front of his friends and show that he couldn't do it. But what I would do is I'd go to the playground, just us in a quiet space, and we would practice it and I'd be there to help him. I feel like any activity is the same. We want to give them the opportunity to practice it and learn it, but not have this urgency to rush or to have to perform something. You guys are in this session because you're already passionate. I feel like this message has to go out to the people who may not come to this type of forum, unfortunately. They're the ones that we may have to provide the data or provide the information to at a staff meeting when we throw it at them. But it's great that this conversation is starting. It's awesome. I'm going to keep going because I'm really trying to give you as much as I can. So spatial awareness is those activities. Where are objects in relation to each other? Also working on where are their body parts. So we often forget the feet, excuse my socks, but we often forget the feet. So teaching children to find their feet. Where are your toes? What does it feel like when you squeeze your toes? What does it feel like when you stomp your feet? Because we tend to always have manipulatives and activities for our hands. We don't always have activities for our feet. When we look at balance and coordination for kids, we need to understand also where our feet are. So trying to be mindful of that as well. I use mirrors for everything. Mirrors are fantastic for working with space. It's basically me watching myself in the camera right now. My body is learning where my body is, where the objects are. I'm getting so much information through my eyes of what my body is doing. So as much as you can with mirrors, it's fantastic. How I got Hugh to realize where his body was he stood in a mirror and did these activities every day. If it wasn't his own body that he was trying to find, I would give him a toy. He liked cars, but this is a train, but he loved Hot Wheels. And I'd say, find the wheel, find the lights, find the door, find the windows. And again, it's practicing where's my body and where are the parts of a car or a train or a doll, whatever the child is interested in. You can also do it in a reflection as well, or you can do fun games where you'll stand in front of someone else and they mirror your movements or your body. There's so many different options, but mirrors, if you can, are amazing. So fundamental movement skills is this throwing and catching, jumping, hopping, skipping. I don't want to scare you, but some recent research is only 11 to 13% of girls Australia-wide can throw and catch a ball. Only 11 to 13%, depending on in Australia where they are, can catch a ball. 80-odd% of children can't. Now, me being a bit of a feminist, that scares me. That scares me, because how many girls do we have as teenagers, young women, not able to throw and catch a ball? Now, I'm not an elite athlete. I don't play any professional sport, but I know that if I want to go out and share some time with my friends, I could join a local netball club, or I could join midweek ladies tennis, and I could be connected with my community pretty quickly. But we have a cohort of girls at the moment who don't have those skills. And what are we setting them up to if we're not confident? Now, in a face-to-face workshop, as this slide comes up, I'd usually pull out my tennis ball and I'd ask someone to catch it. And I'd get maybe 2 or 3 people per, yeah, thanks. I'd get 2 to 3 people per crowd offering it up. Everyone else would look away. Don't look at me. I'm not trying that. What if I drop it? What if I make a mistake? What if my friends think that I'm uncoordinated? And this is where we're setting up our girls, you know, boys as well. But what I'm finding is typically boys at school will play soccer, basketball, footy, cricket, but the girls are usually, and I look at Isla, my daughter, on the playground, which is great, or sitting around having a chat with their friends. So development isn't just about getting our kids school ready. It's about, we want healthy teenagers. We want healthy adults. And a ball has the potential to do that, whether it's a scrunched up piece of paper, whether it's a soft basketball, playing games in your class like silent ball, playing activities where you throw a ball against a letter on the wall, or you throw a ball down at the ground at an animal flashcard. It builds up those fundamental movement skills, which is really important.
We've just got, somebody has said here, if we have these supports in the classroom, do children naturally seek them out to use, or is this something that we implement once professional intervention has occurred?
Good question. Great question. Depends on the personality of the kid. I know that doesn't answer your question, but I'll try and answer as much as I can. If I set up activities for a kid who's coordinated, most of them will want to go and do it. But the children that we're trying to help in this situation usually aren't coordinated, may be reluctant to do it, and may be really reluctant to do it in front of their peers. By the age of about 4, Hugh knew that he was different to his sister, or that he was different to his friends, because he saw it. He saw his friends would go off and run and get the ball, and even till this day, he's like, Mum, my friends are faster than me. So they can be reluctant. So sometimes it can be a part of an obstacle course. So everyone does it as part of an obstacle course in the morning, or everyone does it as part of a transition activity going from point A to point B, or I'm going to get you to do this activity and then you tell me what you'd like me to do next. What sort of got me through for Hugh was, I really need you to do some crawling today. What should we do next? It was always footy. I've learned how to kick a footy pretty quick. Always footy. So you crawl for me for 1 minute and I'll play footy for 1 minute. It's that reward system. Kids, this is hard work for kids. So we really need to have that reward system for some of them. Some might have that persistence to try something, but typically the kids that I work with, we have to set it up in a reward system. It's really hard, I know, because you've got big numbers. But what I tend to try and do is just work on one child a week in a classroom. So if you think, okay, Johnny is week 1, term 3, I'm going to try and do as best I can for Johnny. I'm going to try, and if it's every day we do hopscotch, or every day we crawl under a table, or every day I hide his drink bottles, he has to reach up really high, Johnny's my priority for this week. And then next week it's someone else. It doesn't take kids long to develop these skills, but it's just in our mind, we can get overwhelmed when we see 6 kids in our class, because that's what stats are, 5 to 6 kids per class are struggling. That's overwhelming. Or if I break that down into 1 child per week, it can sometimes help a little bit. But yeah, it's a great question. Thank you, Belinda. So I've just got beach kinder sounds interesting. Awesome. And I think that's what we try. I was just in the forest school webinar just before this one, and we've gone indoors because that's our lifestyle. You know, we're all indoors right now. My kids spend a lot of time indoors. I'm really fortunate where I am. I'm in the Yarra Valley in the bush of Victoria. So my kids have access to an acre property where they can climb trees and they can run up and down hills and find bugs in our backyard. But that's quite rare these days. We've got lots of kids who are in apartment living, small backyards. Where I used to live, I could barely throw a ball to my dog because it hit the other side of my boundary. So these programs are so important, where we can get them outdoors and we can get them barefoot playing on the grass or in the sand, because that's our body's designed for that. Our body actually isn't designed for shoes or socks, but we put them on because that's what we all do. So it's trying to have that really healthy balance if we can, absolutely. So the more these programs can come out, it would be amazing. You guys are doing so well. You're hanging in there. We're nearly at 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. Hopefully you're doing okay. I'm just going to do one more concept. We're going to get our body moving a bit. I'm going to show you this picture and I'm going to explain it quickly, and then I'm going to show you how to test it. So this is a test for hand-eye coordination. Now, what I'm checking is, can the head, eyes, and hand look separately, work separately together? So I'm going to write something on here. And I'll show you back on a big screen. So super simple, it's backwards for you guys, but it's I am Robyn. To be able to read that sentence on a whiteboard, your eyes have to track it without your body moving. You're all able to read that, super simple, without the head or the body moving along with your eyes. We have an issue with kids at the moment where everything moves at the same time. Again, when we're sitting on a smart device all the time, our head and our eyes are all at the same position. I then try and throw them a ball, or I get them to read a sentence, and their eyes, head, and body all move at the same time. That's not how ideally life works, because can you imagine 18-year-olds driving a car with their head, eyes, and hands all moving? That's pretty scary. So what we want to try and do is make sure that kids can coordinate their heads, hands, and eyes completely separate. And this is the test for it. So 4 years and above, if you have a 3-year-old, I'd be surprised if they could, but hey, give it a go, but 4 and above. And I'm just going to get you to do it with me. So if you're not on camera, that's fine. Just feel it in your body so you know what we're trying to do. We're just going to put our hand in front of our nose. Super simple. Awesome. I'm going to keep my hand there. This is test 1. Keep my hand there. I'm going to move my head, but keep my eyes on my hand. And you'll feel it. Your eyes will feel quite strained, like, oh, that's hard work. Yep, we're all able to do that. Beautiful. Now we're going to do the opposite. So this is test 2. I'm now going to keep my head still. My eyes are going to move to follow my hand. So that's the 2 pictures that I showed in that previous slide. I'll show it again. Good job. You're all passed. Look at that. Well done. We've got it. Yeah. Saturday afternoon. So this is where you can see the 2 pictures, and this is where you can see that Hugh is finding it a little bit challenging. So his hand is still in the first one, and his head is moving, but he couldn't get the complete rotation. He was sort of still stuck in this midline of head and eyes and hand all wanting to be in the same position. And then you could see in the next one, he went to move his hand, but his arm came out because he couldn't quite get it all working independently. So the funny little behaviors that we'll see when kids are struggling with hand-eye coordination is we'll see the other hand come out to try and help. We'll see the whole body moving, nothing staying still, or you'll actually see the child just completely disengage and not want to do it because they will feel pain in their eyes, as some of you might have. I feel it because I'm a glasses wearer, but you will find some kids will just not want to do it at all. But the importance of what we say to our kids is it's so important to do this, because the more we do it, the more our brain grows and the stronger our body becomes. And why we want to do it is we'd love all kids to be able to read across a whiteboard without that body twisting exhaustion. So hand-eye coordination is really important. It can be done in the classroom through different ways. I'll bring you back. So how we can do it in the classroom to build up hand-eye coordination, it could be tapping a balloon back and forth. If you played a game of balloon tapping, it could be throwing a ball at different objects on a wall. It could be circling answers on a whiteboard. All we're trying to do is get the eyes to do one job, which is looking for the object, and to get the body to do a different job, trying to separate the two systems, rather than children feeling stuck with everything trying to be working at the same time. The goal with all of this is to have kids who are keeping up their energy all day. For kids like Hugh, who struggled across the midline, who struggled with visual tracking, he was exhausted by the end of his prep days. So if we can try and build up these skills and strengths in fun ways that still involve your literacy and your numeracy, then it's going to be great for the kids. And the parents will really start to see the improvements as well. And that's when we can start to show that, we have to get these foundations first. So I'm just going to show you my last slide, and then I've got time for questions, which is always fun. So the reason why I always put this slide is I want to show you how simple it can be and how we don't want to overwhelm it. I don't want you to go back to work on after the holidays. In Melbourne here it's the holidays. I don't want you to go back and feel overwhelmed that you have to run a complete morning routine and you have to change up all that you do. You can help children with their technology by a simple transition activity like hopscotch or skipping. All Isla's doing in this picture is skipping across masking tape lines. Skipping improves her balance, it improves her core strength. Skipping has timing. If you go onto my Instagram or my Facebook, and type in the search skipping, I actually have a video which shows you how I taught Isla to skip. More than welcome to use that. And what we do is when we skip, we have to have timing. When I learn how to read, I have to have timing. So if we can just do two things, talk to children about the importance of oxygen going to their brain, and set up some sort of transition activity where they do hopscotch to their lunchbox or they skip to go get a snack, then we're just bridging that gap that may be there. So I'm all ears for your questions. That is the gist of everything. So please feel free to unmute yourself if it's easier to chat, or type in the chat box and we'll go from there.
I'll just read one of the ones out from Christy.
Yeah, sure.
From the chat box. I've been trying to get the owner of our centre to put some climbing equipment in the yard. Do you have any research documents to prove climbing supports developing and learning?
I could try actually. So I can look at the, and thank you, Christy. I could look at the link between climbing and crossing the midline. I do see the reluctance a lot. So it's not just your owner. There's a reluctance around risk management and the price of these things. It's quite a common barrier that we hit. So I can try and get you the resources. The challenge that we have is there's just not that much research. I was even trying to find today the research on sitting endurance, like how long should our children be sitting for? And I haven't been able to find it. Our real challenge in this sector is we have a lot of research around academics, because that's what the curriculum I feel is pushing for, but we don't have much. But I'll try. I'll burrow through the research, because what I want to try and teach people is where our body is designed to fall and to have trips and have risk. It's designed for it. If you look at a toddler learning how to walk, they fall over 10 to 20 days. And what they're learning in that is as they fall, their body is teaching them how to get back up, and their body is getting feedback about how they fell in the first place. Did they trip? Did they lean too far forward? Did they lean too far back? And their body adapts to that. Where if we just go bubble wrap you, don't let you trip, don't let you fall, don't let you bump into anything, then we're not giving them that skill to learn. So I'll try and find the best I can, but it's trying to get that awareness out of our kids will fall. My daughter Isla broke her arm day 4 of prep, monkey bars, because that's what kids do. And she's fine, her arm's fine, but she was risk taking on monkey bars, building up her wrist stabilization and her core strength. Winning, yep, she fell, she hurt herself. But if we bubble wrap these kids and we don't let them trip, we don't let them fall, and we don't let them challenge their spatial awareness, then it's really, it's hindering their learning. So let me see what I can find. That'd be awesome. No worries.
The next one is from Demeter. It says, I have a child who skipped crawling and went straight to walking. Would core strength exercises help them? Is there anything else I could be doing for them?
Yeah, that's a great question and really common. Again, very common. So I would just try and get them crawling as much as possible. Because when we crawl, core strength will help, of course, but core strength exercises on their own won't help the crossing the midline part of crawling. So we want to also mimic that. So when I'm standing up and I'm doing my morning routine where I'm doing crossing the midline, that will help. So if we've missed crawling, this activity will help, but it's not going to put it all together in one big basket. So we want to try and just crawl as much as we can. So how I do crawling without causing too much chaos is I might just give, because it's real, I might just give the little one a job to crawl to get the library book or to crawl to get their toy. And just because if you have 25 kids crawling, it's manic. But if little Johnny just crawled, then he's still getting the exposure that he needs. Other things that I also do is I pretend to be a cat or I pretend to be a dog, and you'll watch them copy me as I crawl. So it's just getting them into that position. It doesn't take children long to learn the action of crawling. It's not like they have to crawl for a whole year to catch up on a whole year of development. It's just giving them, kids are really pretty amazing, but up to 6 weeks is what takes for a new nerve pathway to really foundation itself. But kids are even quicker than that. That's adult data. We know that kids are quicker than that. I don't have the exact time frame for you, but you know that it's going to be 6 weeks at the most. And if that's just once a day, he crawls to go and get something, then you know he's going to get what he needs for his development. So yeah, please get them crawling if you can. No worries.
From Isabel, how do we help children who have anxiety using playground equipment such as climbing frames and balancing beams?
It's a good question. What I do is I take out some of the stress of it. So children will get to the top of a climbing frame and they'll have a little mini freak out, which is fair enough. It's quite high for how little they are, and they don't know where to put their hands, they don't know where to put their feet. So it can be quite overwhelming. They've also watched other children possibly not do it in the safest way. So they might have seen other children crash off it. They might have fallen off it once before. So I tend to label the top of the climbing frame with what I want them to do, and I walk them through it first. For example, little child gets to the top of the climbing frame. I put a sticker on either side of one side of the climbing frame. So if you imagine I've got the bar here, I put a sticker on the left-hand side of that bar, and I put a sticker on the right-hand side of that bar. Automatically, the child will get into this position. They may freak out, but then what I need them to do next is I need them to put their leg over and put their bottom up in the air. It's giving them those prompts of what do I do when I get to the top? Because just expecting a kid to get to a climbing frame and climb it is actually really overwhelming. So I break it down. We're going to put our hands here. I need you to put your leg, and sometimes I even tap the bottom of their leg. I'm like, I need you to put your leg over there, bottom up in the air, come back down the other side. But I have to sometimes move their body through that. But the best part about it is 3 to 4 turns of me helping them, mastered it, confident climber. If we feed into the anxiety and the nervousness of them climbing, then the anxiety gets worse every time they hit that A-frame. If I don't push them through it or guide them through it or help them master it, then they'll get to that A-frame and they'll avoid it every time. So it's sometimes just that physical prompt. And what I have done in the past is I've just put an educator at that station of the obstacle course for a week. And a week sounds a long time, but after that week, 95% of the children can independently do the obstacle course. But it's just getting them over that hump, really, and giving them the prompts of how to do it. Absolutely. And you're welcome, Demeter, not a problem. So if I can get you to take anything away, it's that we have a cohort of kids, out of no fault of anyone's, just our lifestyle of change. We have a cohort of kids that are really struggling with their development. They're really, 25% are behind where they need to be. And we don't want to place blame on anyone. We don't want to place, blame on a parent who comes and drops them off because the parent's working full time, hasn't been able to make sure they've caught up with everything. We have to be able to make sure that they're supported and they know it's just crawling once a day. It's giving them a strategy of, I've noticed that your child W sits. W sitting can sometimes be because our core strength is a little bit weak. Not a big problem. Let's just crawl every day to chase a ball across the lounge room floor. Or let's just set up some PlayStations under the table and encourage Johnny to crawl under there once a day. It's giving parents that little snippet of strategy so they don't feel guilty by it. Because I've been there when Hugh was delayed and I went to those mothers group meetings, I was automatically judged for the performance of my kid. Women can do that. We can judge how my parenting is by the performance and the development of my child. And I just want parents to feel that we're here for them. And I know you guys all are, but sometimes parents need to hear that. Sometimes parents need to go, you're doing a great job. Yep, he might be a little bit behind in his running, or he can't quite pick up a pencil yet, but he's doing all right. This is what we're going to do to get him there. And this is something you could do at home. It just gives that empowerment, and you'll hopefully see mum or dad feel a bit more confident and less guilty for it. I don't know why we place guilt on our kids' development, but I've felt that before, and I just don't want any other parents to feel that. So thank you. Oh, thanks, Angela. Yes. If you have any kids that aren't sitting still at mat time and are quite agitated, the way that we can work out what they need is just giving them something to, so for example, I'll quickly give really sensory tips in a really quick snippet because I know I'm nearly up for time. If they like proprioception, then we can try and give them something that's really squishy and see if squeezing something helps to focus them. Proprioception. For example, for me, I take everywhere. I'll show you. It's really heavy. You probably saw it this morning. It's the heaviest mug I could find because I like proprioception because it makes me feel calm. So when I need to focus, I hold something heavy and it keeps me where I need to be. Some kids are the same. So giving them something to squeeze or something that's quite heavy, see if it's that. If it's not, then we move on to the next sensation. So the next sensation might be something tactile. So this is rough. It might be something they move up and down. This makes a little bit of sound, and you'll start to see what's making them focused, what's helping them to be in the moment and take in the information. Because everyone's fidgeted at the moment in this webinar. I fidgeted like crazy because that's me. I'm always moving. You guys have played with a pen. You've wriggled your body around. We're all fidget. It's just we've found what works for us. It's helping kids find what works for them. I wouldn't give a kid a tennis ball. That's sort of not what I'm trying to get to. But if they had something that they could just fidget with at mat time and see what works for them, you're giving them their mug strategy or their pen strategy that we now have as adults. I think the challenge sometimes is we have parents or families who just expect that Johnny will go into kinder or school and just sit. But that might not be his personality. I've never had that personality to just sit. I still don't just sit, but it's if you can nurture them into knowing what helps them. Is it tearing tiny pieces of paper? For Isla, so my oldest girl, she doesn't sit. So I don't know if you can see here, but this has a sticker around the pencil. So every pencil that I give her, I put a sticker around. So she sits and writes, but has to peel. She likes to pick at the sticker. So in class, she looks socially appropriate. She looks like she's with the other friends, but she's able to do her picking, because if I didn't give her this, she picked at her hems. She used to unpick her clothes. So you have to try and find what's going to help them feel settled. Because once they feel settled and once Isla feels focused, she learns so much more. It's just finding what helps them. Hopefully that answers your question. Yeah. So I'm just going to read the next one. Fantastic. So Kim asked, what point do we ask for an OT? Yeah. So what we look at is when it's impacting their learning. So to what point are they struggling to form friendships? Are they struggling to retain information? So you're reading them a story and they're not able to take that information in. to what point if they're really little and they're 3 or 4, are they soiling themselves often? They're not eating, they're not drinking, they're not playing outside. If you're where they're missing part of their learning, then I'd go straight down occupational therapist, absolutely. You can also, I don't know in Queensland, but in Melbourne, we have a thing called a preschool field officer. They come into the kindergartens and do an observation. It's always good to get onto these things as early as you can, but only if it's impacting their learning. If they're just a fidgety kid and they're still taking in information and they're still quite, being able to relate to other people and follow instructions, I wouldn't be too concerned. But some children, yeah, definitely do need an assessment for sure. Yeah, sorry, I'm just reading Roxy. So my 4-year-old is not a confident climber. It's a tricky one. So with Hugh, because Hugh hated playgrounds, that's part of the reason why I used to schedule playground visits when it was quiet. I only went when it was really quiet. I found that just before dinner time was quiet, or early Saturday morning was when we would go. And luckily for me, he likes Ninja Warrior. He loves that show. And I'd put on Ninja Warrior and I'd say, oh, we're going to practice being Ninja Warrior and how quick can you do it? And obviously I wasn't timing him, but I had my phone pretending I was timing him. It's whatever can motivate him. Because what I would have found, if I didn't get Hugh to overcome his nervousness, then he still wouldn't be out on a playground with his friends. It was pretty early on. I think it was even when he was in 3-year-old kinder. I went to pick him up and I was watching him. There was an A-frame and his sister Isla, she smashed an A-frame from the minute she could get on it. She was climbing it. And what I saw Hugh doing was he stood next to the A-frame and he's such a sweetie. He goes, your turn, your turn. What he'd worked out was he'll just let everyone else have a turn. He'll just stand there, have a great old chat, and he'll avoid it completely. Well, we have to try and go, come on, Hugh, let's go. Let's climb that thing. But we have to help them in a way. So it's trying to go when it's not chaotic and not nerve-wracking. I'm not going to make Hugh climb something in front of his peers. But if you can try and get him more confident, that would be awesome. And it's just through trial and error. And it is nerve-wracking. If you look at some of the play equipment for little 4-year-olds, it's huge. And especially if they've tripped once, we don't know whether they've had a little trip or they've nearly fallen or they've been nervous. We've got to just overcome that. One strategy that I talk with children a lot is neuroplasticity. I'll write it here so you can. I have a video all about neuroplasticity on just look up Play, Move, Improve on YouTube and you'll find my video. I have an almost 17-year-old clone to Hugh. Yeah, that's good. They still turn out all right. It's hard. Neuroplasticity is how the brain grows. So what I used to say to Hugh, and I'm just going to use this nuts and bolts thing again, but I used to try and say to him that every time he makes a mistake, whether he trips, whether he drops the ball, whether he falls over, his brain grows. And his brain, whenever he makes a mistake, it makes a new neuron and it forms a new nerve cell. I might also explain it in trains or cars. When these connect with each other, whenever I make a mistake, my train of one car becomes my two trains. And then I make another mistake and then I have 3 trains. And I make another mistake and then my brain has 4 trains. However, you can teach kids that their mistakes are exciting because the brain is growing. That's what flipped Hugh's mindset. Even still to this day, he's now learning karate. I did it for his balance. But he's doing karate. And I heard him say to his sensei, my brain's growing. Yes. Got to put it in a concept that the kids understand and that the kids are going to go, I'm going to try that because if I fall off or I trip, my brain will grow. Rather than, oh, that makes me nervous. Try to avoid it. But it is hard. Sometimes my stomach ends up in my throat when I watch Hugh on a playground, but it's really, really good for his development. So hang in there, Roxy. Try and get your little one on the playground and always, sometimes go with a friend that's going to be able to support you because it is nerve-wracking for all of us. There are precious little gems and for Hugh being super uncoordinated, he fell over all the time. So I tried my really best to be there for him and make him practice, but it was hard for me to watch sometimes. I had to sort of close my eyes a little bit. But thank you so much for coming. I know it's so late on a Saturday afternoon. You've had so much information thrown at you. There's a link at the very top of the chat for the Google Slides. I know there's not much information on there. So please find me on YouTube. Just Google Play, Move, Improve on YouTube. All of this is explained in really small snippets of video. So feel free to share with your family or friends or colleagues. And if you have any more questions, ask away, but I don't want to hold you up for too much longer. You've been amazing. Oh, thank you, Demeter. I love seeing your little man back there. He came in. Hi. Hello. I love it. And thanks, Sam, for your help. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you. Can I get everybody, if you're on video, to give her a big clap? Thank you.
Thank you.
You're amazing. That was
Thank you.
wonderful. Really, really
Oh, thanks for coming in.
and inspiring for the last sort of session for the day. So no.
Yes, hopefully I'll close it off and you're a bit awake, hopefully. Absolutely.
Oh, I love the pen around the back. I didn't realize how uncoordinated I was.
Yeah, and I want you to really realize that it's not fancy equipment. I feel like sometimes people go, oh, what toy should I buy for this? And what should I have for that? I'm like, well, it's just a random bunch of stuff. You don't have to go out and get anything fancy.
And if you don't mind, are you happy for us to email you to get a copy of those? It was the cross midline activity cards, I think you said you had?
Yeah. So it's just an A4 printout. You're welcome to print it out, copy it as many times as you like. It's fine. Just little pictures you'll see here on there again. And if you can try and do that with them once a day, but if it's too chaotic and you can't get to it, then you're welcome to just go on YouTube. You'll find it. Just press play and away they can go. But the more you can try and get them to learn crossing the midline, the other skills will start to come as well.
So what's it called on YouTube, if you don't mind us putting that in the chat?
Play, Move, Improve. All right.
Play, Move, Improve.
Actually, no, sorry, if you've got 1 second,
yeah,
I will get you the exact link. That's a good idea.
Awesome.
There we go. We can work this out. But everything you just feel free to share. It's all about raising awareness. So whatever we can do.
I just can't believe 25% lower.
That
is, hand up if anybody else thought that was really shocking. Like, yeah.
It's scary.
I mean, I've noticed it because I work in a low social economic area, but I didn't realize that was a sort of wide issue.
Yeah, so in some states, it's been around 25% since 2015. So it happens every 2 years. I don't know if you know of the AEDC. It's the Australian Early Years Development something. It has gone down in some states to be 22% in 2019. So we are getting it down, but it's still 22 to 25%.
Wow.
Yeah, so 4 to 6 children per classroom.
Yeah.
Scary. Yeah, so there's the link there. It should take you straight there. You'll see all the videos. But if you ever have any questions, please reach out. Always happy to help, whatever you need.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you so much.
No worries. Good to see you all. I'll leave you to it because I know you're super tired.
I do need to remind everyone now, when you log off at 4:30, you can join us for the wine and cheese session. And in the wine and cheese session, you can win lots of wonderful prizes.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. See ya.
See ya.
That was really good. I like that.
Hold up, I'm still